In 3, 2, 1. My friend Alayna, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very good. It's so good to see you. The last time I saw you, I was in a state of absolute horror and terrified.
Hey, you know what? The Reformatory does that to people, so you're not the first one.
It was one of the worst nights of my life, but one of the coolest days of my life, because the Reformatory is there's so much history there to be seen, and there's so much stuff to learn, and I'm just like a super just history nerd. I don't know what it is. I love it. It just sucks me in, and it makes me want to pay attention and listen more and find out about things. And that place is amazing until the sun goes down. And then when the sun goes down, it's not tight anymore.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
history goes
I,
out
I
the
agree.
window. The history goes out the window. Now, so for the people who have no clue who are you? Tell me about everything.
Okay, cool. So, hi, my name is Alayna Ross. I am the communications coordinator at the Ohio State Reformatory. So, I run social media accounts, graphic design, edit videos, pretty much anything that involves a computer, I'm there.
Nice.
Um, I'm also a tour guide, so I run tours on the weekends. And I am fourth generation at the Ohio State Reformatory as well. So, my great great grandfather was one of the first guards in 1896 when we first opened. My grandfather was captain of the guard. My grandma was one of the first females employed. Actually, my grandma and my grandpa met because they both worked there. So
Oh,
I owe a
really?
lot. Really? Yeah, yeah,
Holy hell! I didn't know that.
yeah.
I don't think you said that last time.
They had a OSR like party
Uh huh.
dance staff party, and my grandpa asked my grandma to go, and she said that a couple months later he called her up on the phone and was like, "Hey Jude, do you want to get married?" And, and she said, "I'll call you back." So
Really? What?
yeah, yeah. So and then they lived happily ever after, and then my father also works there too. So when it's not a pandemic, him and I carpool.
Right. God, that's so crazy to hear. Because so how long has that prison been around for?
It has been around since we opened in 1896.
Mhm.
So I'm super bad at math, so you'll
That's
have to
okay.
do that one
That's okay.
yourself.
1896 is when it opened up. And why did it? Why
Mhm.
did it open again? Didn't it have? Wasn't there like a big story as to why they had to open up that prison?
Yeah, so at the time in the state of Ohio, there were two facilities. There was the Boys Industrial School in Lancaster, Ohio, which is sort of like juvenile detention.
Okay.
And then down in Columbus, there was the big bad prison that was Ohio Penitentiary.
Hmm.
And so that was for like the worst of the worst. But there was no middle ground. So like let's say that you killed a man.
Okay.
Just let's say.
I
And
mean,
I
we'll see.
and I stole a candy bar from the gas station. We would be put in the same cell with each other. So I'm not going to come out as a better person, but a better criminal. Because you're going to teach me
Mm.
all of your ways, and I'm going to teach you all of my ways. So they wanted a middle ground. So that's why they made the reformatory. So it was a place for young first-time offenders between the ages of 15 and 35.
Okay.
And so we had pickpockets, horse thieves. One of our first 100 inmates, he was actually incarcerated for being a tramp. So just being homeless. Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah.
Boy, how times have changed.
I know, right?
That's so wild to hear, because I know when we were there actually touring the cells and seeing all of it, there wasn't one part of the building actually added on after like a big disaster of some kind. Like what happened with that? Wasn't there like a fire or something?
Yeah, so not quite added on, but kind of altered. So
Okay.
when we first opened, we had one cell block, and that was the
Mhm.
west cell block. So that's why it's constructed completely differently.
Okay.
Then we started to grow more, so they decided to build the second cell block, but that was built by our inmates. So we just said,
Mm.
hey, free labor, whatever. But then in 1930, in 1930, there was a big fire. It was the deadliest prison fire in the United States history at Ohio Penitentiary in Columbus.
Okay, so
And they,
and that was the bad one. That was where all
yes,
the actual like murderers and stuff were, correct?
yes. And so there were 100 of those guys that they weren't able to house due to the fire. So they sent them to us, and we put them in the attic. And that's when we started to kind of become a maximum security facility, because we took more and more on as Ohio Penn was being built, and then I guess it just stuck.
Yeah, that attic is a terrifying place.
It's horrible.
It is a terrifying place. That was so if you don't know, everybody that's listening out there, I bitched out so hard on the attic at night, because we ended up there on a tour with Jake, and you were our tour guide, and you know, it was so intriguing to be there during the day and hear about everything, and you kind of showing everything in the light, and then, you know, around 1 a.m. when they're like, hey, let's go check out the attic. No, I'm cool. And then, the next day I got to go up there and check it out with a different tour guide. You weren't there. I don't know where you were, but you must have had the day off or something. But we got to go up there with a different tour guide, and even she was like, yeah, I don't like being up here. I don't like this attic. It is a scary, scary place, because there is definitely some kind of paranormal thing that's going on up there, no doubt.
Yeah, in my opinion, and like I don't usually do the ghost stuff.
Right.
I am usually like purely daytime, purely history. And so like being thrown with you guys, I mean, it was so much fun, but I was so out of my element, because like I don't do that stuff at night.
I don't listen, I don't watch scary movies. I don't watch scary YouTube videos. I don't enjoy anything regarding anything. I don't like it. I don't like jumps. I don't like anything. I like fun, happy, dancing through the flowers kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's not me. And I know that was a big step out of my comfort zone, and obviously yours too. But I will say this, with having you there, if you weren't there, I would have left at 11. I would have left at way earlier.
Same with you though.
Really?
With you though. Cause like, yeah, totally. Cause the reason I wasn't there the day that you guys came was I was sleeping in.
Right.
Cause I worked day and night. So I was like,
yeah, see ya. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I came to work the next day, and they're like, how'd it go? Was it good? And I was like, dude, if Dapper wasn't there, I totally would have just been like, I'll be in the office if you need me.
Yeah. Which is so crazy, because I tower over you, but dead ass, I needed you as a shield more than anything. Like, yo, do not take me. Like, please, this girl's been here longer than me. Just talk to her. Don't kill me.
It's saying, but we would make a really good ghost hunting team. We wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah, we would get nothing done. Every episode would be a minute long of me. All right, I'm scared. Let's leave. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
This is
Walks in. Nope.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm out. All right, that's it. Thanks for coming to the Ohio State Reformatory. God, it's ridiculous. But so after that big fire, that's when you guys started to turn into a maximum security prison. Well, essentially, you became one, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
How were the first time offenders still in there as more and more maximum security inmates started to filter in?
Yes, they were. So, the transitional period happened over like 30 years.
Okay.
But we did have 2 dormitories out in the yard that were for juvenile. And we kept juveniles all the way until we closed in 1990.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we kept them within our grounds, but not in the same prison as everybody else, because the law says you can't house juveniles with adult inmates.
Makes sense, right?
So those juveniles, they still, ate in the same chow hall that those hardened criminals were eating at, and they still had jobs inside the reformatory, kind of rubbing elbows with those guys.
Right.
And they had a really good view of the rest of the community too. Mm-hmm. So my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandmother, all those people, we lived directly across the street from the reformatory.
Did you point at the houses that were out there? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's literally like it's not like, oh yeah, it's like right down the road. It's literally right across the street.
Oh yeah, like you could hit it with a rock.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not a joke at all. Yes, you definitely can.
Yeah, and so those guys would be able to see in my grandparents' backyard. And so my grandma used to come to work, and they'd be like, oh, hey, we saw that you guys had a barbecue last night. How was it? she'd be like, "You guys can't spy on me, you know."
That weirds me out. I would not like
Yeah.
that. I don't want my neighbors looking in my backyard, much less a high security inmate. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's so scary.
Yeah.
God, that's wild. But so, you know, obviously we got to go on like the full tour. You showed us everything, and you're talking about, you know, these guys, you know, the juveniles and the maximum security guys who are all bumping elbows. I think one of the craziest things that I got to see was the showers.
Hmm.
What was the nickname for that, or was there a nickname for it?
Yeah, the car wash.
The car wash, because that, I mean, it embodies every sense of that word or that term, the car wash, because I guess the way that you explained it is when you walked in there, you essentially, and it's a big rectangular room, and essentially in the middle of it there's hanging spouts, and the inmates had to walk through all, and you had the time from walking from one end to the other, and that was your shower for how long?
30 seconds.
Oh my God.
Once a week, too.
That is so brutal. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine that. And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, it obviously times have changed, but I cannot imagine it being at its prime time an incredible place to take a shower at to begin with.
No, no.
Yeah.
And we had asbestos soap at that point in time too. So you're risking your life being in there with other inmates because the showers were unsupervised. So you were like literally on your own.
Oh my
And then
God.
we gave you asbestos soap, which, you know, we all know is super bad for your everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah, so a lot of the guys, they actually didn't have enough time to wash their hair and their body.
Mm-hmm.
So they would wash their body while they were in the showers, put soap in their hair, walk back to their cell, and then rinse off in the sink.
What the fuck? That's so crazy. And then
Yeah.
the cell size, the cell size of those things are, it is not big. And you were saying how many inmates would sometimes get housed in these tiny cells? Like what are the dimensions of those cells? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think the last that I checked, they were 5 feet by 9 feet.
Okay.
So they're very small.
Yeah.
And they were only made for one inmate. But when we were running on, you know, all cylinders, we had up to 3.
Dude,
And there's only 2 bunks.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's so insane. Like, I can't imagine the scuff. Like, imagine if you're the dude that everybody that the 2 other guys hate having in your cell. Dude, that scares me. That absolutely, like, imagine being that guy. Like, do you just get kicked out and just have to deal with it, or what?
Well, it kind of depends on where you're at. So on the East Cell Block, you would just have to deal with it. East Cell Block was like the place that you get put when you do your first 30 days in the reformatory. And so you kind of have to either prove yourself to be compliant, and if you're on good behavior, then you go over to the West Cell Block, and West Cell Block was much nicer. But if you're going to put up a fight and just be nasty, then you're going to stay on the East Cell Block. On the West Cell Block, there were 2-man cells that they pretty much kept just 2-man cells, but we also had 4-man cells. And the 4-man cells worked on kind of like a survivor system. So, like, let's say that you, me, Jake, and Shelby are in a cell. Let's say that you guys didn't like me. You could go to the warden and be like, "It's not working out. Can we vote her off?" And you could vote me out of the cell.
And then you go where? Back to East?
Yeah, back to East.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
Dude, what a nightmare. God.
Yeah, so you really have to watch, you know, like make friends and be kind of political.
Of
kind
course.
Just like,
yeah.
Hello, everybody.
I'm a nice guy. Please keep me in here.
Yeah. Pack of smokes.
Yeah. Need some gum? That is such a scary thing. And you know, one of the most intimidating things about that entire trip is seeing the sheer size of the prison. Like you were saying how, you know, at one point, like, you know, you're running at top speed, everybody's in there, you know, people are on top of each other sometimes with, you know, depending on which east or west side cell block you're in. But how many stories high are these cells? It's like 8, right? Or something like that?
So the East Cell Block is 6 tiers high. And then the West Cell Block is 5. But the
Okay.
East is actually the world's tallest freestanding steel cell block ever.
Freestanding.
So, like, let's say that if something were to happen and the outside walls of the reformatory fell, the East cell block can stand by itself.
Oh, wow. I did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, so it's just a steel cage, basically.
Damn, that's crazy. It is. It's one of the most. It's one of the most wild things to walk down on the first floor and look up and see just rows and rows and rows of cells. Like it's intimidating. It's scary, and especially at night too. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And can you imagine being a new inmate? Like, you've never been to prison before, and you've got all these guys that are out to get you, and then you walk in and you see all of those tears go up, and it's so loud, and the smell.
Oh, I bet it was so loud.
Yeah, it was really bad. And they would throw, trying to think of a nice way to say this, throw human waste out of the cells to hit the guards down below. Yeah.
Holy hell, that's so crazy. Now, did the guards stay on site all the time, or because I know we got to tour a couple of the main facility where employees sort of stayed, but I know I'm phrasing that wrong.
Oh no, you're fine.
Explain that whole thing to me again.
Yes, so we had dormitory style rooms for guards. So basically guards' quarters.
Right.
So if you were single, if you lived too far away, if you had suddenly been put in a position where you don't have anywhere to stay, you can stay within the reformatory. So, like, for example, when my grandfather got out of Korea, he stayed in the reformatory. So
really?
Yeah. And then also my great grandfather, when he got kicked out of the house by his first wife, he stayed there. So here's the second.
Yeah. But they're like all in one row, right? Like, if I remember that correctly, yeah. And the warden stayed on site all the time, correct? They had their own like warden's quarters, which was way nicer than anything else.
Yeah, he got 3 whole floors to himself.
3 whole floors.
3 whole floors.
That's so insane. And you guys had the same warden there for a long time, right? Or how many wardens did you guys go through?
We went through 11.
Okay.
11 wardens from 1896 to 1990. Our longest warden, or the longest stay, was Arthur Gladkey. So he was there from 1935 to 1959, and he died in the facility.
Tell me that story.
Yeah, so he was down in his office, which was on the first floor where the Corrections Museum is now. And I guess he just had a heart attack, and his 2 sons found him.
And they were they young?
Yes, they were not graduated from high school yet. I think that they were like 16 and 17 maybe.
Yeah, and he had a wife as well that also stayed on the facility who
Yes.
we had a definite encounter with, by the way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you this because we haven't spoken since then, but we ended up going into her room, correct? Was that
Yes.
Okay, so we ended up going into the wife's room, and we were sitting there and we kind of had a chat, and we were talking that, whenever her spirit comes around, there's normally you can like smell, you can like she like puts off like a good smell that kind of like floats around through the room. Is that right?
Yeah, rose perfume.
Okay, so a good smell, right? And whether or not people believe it, whatever. I thought that something was there. It was weird. And the next two days after that, I got home, Alayna, and this is not a joke. I got home, hanging out, did streaming, did everything that I needed to do, whatever. Went to bed one evening. I woke up at like 7 a.m. to a rose smell where I was smelling it at the house, and I was like, and at first I was like, oh, like Jess, she's probably downstairs like making she always makes cinnamon raisin bagels in the morning, and I was like, oh, maybe that's what it is, whatever. And I looked at my watch and it was like 7:15, and she's normally gone by like 6:15. And I was like, okay, what the hell's going on? I got up, went downstairs, no one in sight, still could smell it. And I was tripping out about it. I got on stream the next day. I was telling everybody about it. I was freaking out. I was like, dude, something fucking followed me home. This is insanity.
Yeah.
It's
I'm going to freak
scary.
you out even more.
Oh, boy.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So when she had her accident, when the gun fell in her closet and she got shot.
Yeah, we need to tell that story. You need to tell me that story, too.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you kind of figured it out right there, but.
She was getting ready for church in the morning around 7.
What? Dude, oh my God. I just got the chills. That's so insane. Holy shit. And I didn't know that either, obviously. Oh my God. What if it was her? Holy shit. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I don't want. And the thing is, too, is I know that from what you guys said, like, and I really I try and distance myself from all things like spirits and paranormal. I believe in it. I just don't want anything to do with it. Like, just just do your thing. Get out of here. And the thing is that you guys had talked like she kind of gravitates more towards people like younger men because of her sons in a sense. And I knew like whenever I woke up to that and was like, it was like kind of all starting to connect. I was like, well, I know that she's like supposed to be like good-hearted, good-spirited, like nice towards people, like whatever, but I was still so terrified of what was actually going on, like that was actually happening, that I did not know what to do. I was terrified. And the worst part is it's 7:15 a.m. I went to bed at 3. Like, can we push this off a couple hours? Like, let's do this at noon, okay?
Yeah.
Let's do this at noon. That way I can actually get some sleep in. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that whole scenario is so insane. And that warden that was there, wasn't he like the most improved? Like he like improved the place the most, or what?
Yeah. So he oversaw the official transition from minimum to maximum security.
Right.
Yeah. Probably the most impressive improvement that we had at the Reformatory was that we were actually the very first prison in the United States to be non-segregated.
What? I actually didn't know that. Holy hell.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys, progressive early on.
Yeah. Wait, no. Actually, I'm wrong. Go back. We were the first prison in the United States to have an African-American warden. That's what it was.
Oh, okay. Hey, Still super progressive. Even back then, that's crazy. Wow, that's wild. For those of you guys that haven't seen this Reformatory, first and foremost, now looking at it, it's beautiful. It is a beautiful building. I mean, you guys took us all around. We got to check out the guard towers and see it from up top and all around, and it is a sight to see. And it's also a sight to see because there's another maximum security prison right behind you guys.
Yeah, we have 2.
It's so that was weird. There was is it like max off to the left and then like a regular one like directly behind?
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
God, that was, and we were up there, and I was like, "Yo, I want to take some pictures," and you were like, you will not take any pictures.
Yeah.
Keep your phones away. This is not any." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh my God. All right." And even when we were using the drone, you were like, "All right, you can't go above. Like you got to be like right here. You can't fly it anywhere else," which is so wild to think about that it's that serious over there. But I mean, I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the sheer magnitude of this prison is so insane. I mean, from the attic, I mean, there was like a full church in there, like 2 full churches.
Yeah, we had one inside the facility and then we had one outside.
So
yep.
It's crazy, and it's also really cool to see the obviously the architecture outside, but inside as well. And then we ended up in the Jesus room. Is that right? What is that again?
So the Jesus room originally would have been overflow dorms.
Okay.
Would have been laundry, mattress factory, and a quartermaster's. So quartermaster is like when you first get booked into prison. That's where you go to get your first uniform and
Okay.
stuff like that. But it's significant for Shawshank because that's where they filmed the scenes where they're watching the Rita Hayworth movie.
Yes.
And so Shawshank is the one that painted the Jesus on the wall, so we call it the Jesus room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's another real big thing that again, those that are listening and watching, the Ohio State Reformatory is where they shot Shawshank Redemption, which is an incredible movie that I actually rewatched twice once I got back, just to be like, oh my god, like I saw this, like I saw a lot of this stuff. It was so wild to see. And now, do you know off the top of your head when was Shawshank filmed there?
1993.
93. And at this, and you guys had closed in 90, correct?
Yes.
How did that whole thing work out? Like, did they contact the prison and was just, or they contact somebody up there and was like, hey, we want to, like, well, how did that go down?
So there's the Ohio Film Commission, and I guess that they said, we're filming this big movie, we need a prison. So Ohio Film Commission's like, oh boy, do we have a place for you?
Oh boy, we got one.
Yeah, and it just closed down 2 years ago. So they came out and they scouted it, decided that that's where they wanted to film it. But they were put on a time constraint because the state of Ohio was going to tear the reformatory down.
Oh, really?
Yes. So when the crew for Castle Rock showed up to the reformatory, they were actually scheduled to demolish the reformatory that day.
Oh my god.
Like the wrecking balls were in the parking lot, all that stuff. So the Ohio Film Commission called the governor's office and said, hey, can you hold off for a little while? They agreed to it. They shot all summer. And then in 1994, that's when Shawshank came out, but that was the same year that they tore down the yard. So all of our factories, our mess hall, the chapel, hospital, all that stuff's gone.
That's right.
Yeah. And then they decided that it was going to cost too much money to tear the reformatory down. So they just left it and they thought it'll just fall apart on its own.
And boy, has it not.
Yeah. So MRPS we're a private historical society. We were just formed by, a few like-minded people, and we started running tours, and we bought it from the state of Ohio for $1, and they gave us our dollar back. So we got
Really?
Yeah.
What, dude? That's crazy. You guys bought that for now? Who is it? Is it under the MRPS? Is that what you said? MRPS?
Yes.
Is that who bought it?
Yes, Mansfield Reformatory Preservation Society.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's so rad. And it's crazy because you showed us a lot of the photos that were of it when it was fully running, of like from the back and actually seeing the full yard with the factories and everything. And that alone, I mean obviously the building itself is insane. If you haven't seen it, definitely look it up, or if you haven't seen Shawshank, you should definitely watch it as well. But seeing the factories that were outside of there and actually looking at the chapels and stuff, it adds a whole nother level to that build. Like, it is crazy to see. And then hearing the stories about, the guys would line up here in the mornings and they go out to do their jobs and do everything throughout those factories and throughout everything that was going on. It's so wild to think back and actually see the pictures of. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we were really kind of a unique place at the time because we decided to take a reformatory approach or reform approach rather than just a penitentiary. So, like, have you ever heard of Eastern State Penitentiary?
No.
Out in Pennsylvania?
No,
it's in the middle of Philadelphia, and they were built by the Quakers, and their whole mantra and idea was that if you did something wrong, you were going to pay for your crime and you're going to repent, and they put a bag over your head and throw you in a cell, and you only talk to like yourself. It was very like scared straight kind of thing.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't working. So when we built the reformatory, we were like, let's give our guys a skill set. So they have an education, they have a vocational skill, and a religion. So the religion was for a set of morals, and the skill set so you can get a job, and an education, because a lot of these guys that were coming in, they did a big test in 1948, they only had a second grade education.
Really?
So our goal for them was to get to 8th grade, and then they could either go to high school, which we had our own high school in the yard. so they could get their GED and they could get their college education if they wanted to.
What? See, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, or they could go get their boiler's license, EMT, firefighter, take a more apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are released from prison, all that work that you did, you get paid for, and it gets put into your going home fund. So when you're released, you have a diploma, you have, this set of money, you get fitted for a brand new suit 30 days before your release.
What?
So you have some new duds for interviews, and a lot of the guards would open up their houses. So if you didn't have anywhere to stay, you could kind of, hang out at a guard's house for a while till you get back on your feet.
Holy hell! Hearing that, like, could you imagine? Could you? And I don't know. I could be totally wrong here, but and that might already be happening. But could you imagine doing that today?
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What a different time where and I don't know. Did you ever hear of anything going bad like that? Like any guards opening up their homes or anything like after release?
Nothing bad that way, but there was something that kind of went sour when these two inmates got released. So there was Robert Daniels and John West, and they were two inmates that met at the Reformatory, kind of became buddies. In a different universe, they were Andy and Red.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
They grew together and they knew each other. And when they were released, this is like anti-Andy and Red. When they got released, they went down to Columbus.
Okay.
And they hated this guard. His nickname was Red, which is weird.
Really?
Yeah, they hated this guard and they conspired against him and they really just wanted to get rid of him. So they stole a whole bunch of firearms from a pawn shop in Columbus, did a complete crime spree from Columbus to Mansfield. Then they started hitting the bottle and they got too drunk and couldn't figure out which house was Red's. They ended up at the superintendent of the Honors Farm, took him, his wife, and his 21-year-old daughter, pulled them out to a cornfield off of Fleming Falls Road, which is right next to the Reformatory, shot them all dead execution style. Then they get in a car and they start booking it towards the Indiana line. And they did a crime spree, killing people left and right. There was a big shootout at the Ohio-Indiana line. One state trooper was killed. John West was killed in the shootout. But Robert Daniels was taken into custody and put down at Ohio Penitentiary in Columbus and executed in the electric chair. And I don't know if you remember this, but the electric chair is now back at the Ohio State Reformatory where it all started.
It is. Yeah, we got to see, and that's the exact chair, correct?
Yep, that's the real one.
What a wild! I can't even imagine being sitting in that chair and knowing what's about to happen.
It would be absolutely terrible. Yeah, 315 people executed in the chair, 3 of which were women.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That is so wild. And
yeah.
Did they do? I don't know if this is like a movie thing or if it's like actually real or not. But was there like crowds there for the executions?
Not that I know of. But the messed up thing is that we have on display. We opened a new display after you guys left.
Oh, really?
But it's a display of souvenirs from Ohio Penitentiary and from us. Mm-hmm. And we have postcards that were supposed to be like novelty items, and they have the pictures of the first 10 guys executed in the electric chair.
Jesus.
Can you imagine a time where they're like, woohoo, pay a nickel and get this postcard of these people that we killed?
Jesus.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
God, that's so insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And God, I can't even imagine that. My mind's actually blown right now. Like that is so wild. And now, when it comes to the execution, is that stuff that's determined like right when they get there, kind of thing? Or are they there for a long time, or is it something that just is kind of just dragged out?
Yeah, so you're put on death row. Uh-huh. It's not nearly as long as it is now.
Right.
The turnaround was pretty quick. So the whole process is that you're sentenced, you're put onto death row, you spend a couple days in the death cell, which is also kind of messed up. Actually, it's super messed up. You sit in a cell that's directly across from the electric chair. And you live there for like a week, just looking at this chair that you're going to die in.
Yeah.
And they bring you your last meal. And then what they do is for the electrocution, they shave a patch in the top of your head, and they attach a sponge there, and then they attach a sponge to your left leg so that the current can run through. And then they hook you up, and it's about 9,000 volts for 7 minutes.
Jesus, that's gotta be brutal to watch.
Oh, and here's another like super messed up story. There was a guy, his name was Charles Justice, and he was an inmate at Ohio Penn, and he decided that he was going to engineer this this new way to keep inmates in the chair. So like if you were super skinny or if you were young, you were too small to sit in the chair and hold on.
Yeah, because it's a big chair.
Yeah, it is a big chair. And so he patented these clamps that go over your arms and your legs, and it was a certain style that kept you in the chair. We patented it, got released from prison, committed murder, and then got executed by his invention.
Like you would think like
so messed up.
Like you would think too, like, hey, like I know what I just invented. I hope that I don't ever get put in this. I should do the opposite to try and get put in this. God.
And he was the first one to have his invention used.
Dude.
So messed up.
Oh my. Dude, they were like, thanks, appreciate the idea. God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
The just that death cell thing is scary. Like I can't imagine looking across there. For the guys that were on death row, we went and looked at solitary confinement. What were those guys put there, or were like how did that whole thing work out?
So no executions occurred at the Reformatory. They would have been down at Ohio Penitentiary, but we did have death row for about 1 to 3 months.
Okay.
And they would have been kept on the first floor of the East cell block.
Okay.
So those cells are also known as like protective custody or max security. So like inmates that are super aggressive, they're going to be kept down there, and those are 23-hour cells. And we kept death row there for 1 to 3 months until it was way too expensive to transport them from Ohio Penn to us and then back to Ohio Penn.
Right, of course.
So we scrapped it.
Talking about the chair and getting their last meal. Was the last meal whatever they wanted?
Yes.
Really? It was still then too?
Yep. And in fact, I can't remember the exact website, but if you're so inclined, because I know that true crime stuff's really big right now.
Yeah, it is.
Which is good for people like me that work in a prison.
Yeah.
But there's a certain website where you can look at the execution records.
Okay.
All the way from like when we did our first execution in the state of Ohio, all the way to the last execution in the chair, and you can look up the people, their crimes, what they were wearing when they were executed, and their last meals.
Holy hell, that's wild.
Yeah. So like on the slow days in the winter time when not a whole lot of people are coming to the Reformatory, that's what I do at the front desk.
Really?
Is I
just scroll through and check everything out?
Yeah.
That was actually a question I was going to ask you, because that was my first time ever in Ohio, and I was going to ask how the tourism is throughout different months of the year. Does it always generally slow down during the winter?
Yeah. So we just recently had enough of an influx of people that we are open year round now.
Wow.
So
cool.
Yeah, we used to close. We used to do our last guided tour on Labor Day, and then close from like November to March. But now we're open all year long. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. So summertime is our busiest.
Right. Of course.
Winter is a little bit slower, mostly just because we don't have heat.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna ask you.
Cold.
You guys don't have heat, huh? Because so when you're walking through the first floor, you can actually see like staggered throughout the each wing. There's fireplaces all the way through. There's do you know off the top of your head how many fireplaces there are?
I believe that there are 12 on the east cell block.
Right.
And there are only like 20 on the west.
Damn.
And according to like modern mathematics and modern regulations,
Mm-hmm.
we should have had like 30 on each cell block. You were
Really?
you were like chipping ice out of your toilets in the mornings, snow drifts. My father got called in one time to the reformatory when it was an open facility for an investigation, and he said that there were snow drifts inside on the cell block
Oh my God.
because it was that cold. My grandmother's typewriter froze shut one time
Oh
because
my God.
her office was a cell, so she had guys on both sides of her. So she worked in a cell.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, what did your grandmother do for them for the prison?
So when she first started out, she was a typist.
Mm-hmm.
Then she got bored and started reading the handbook and realized that she would get paid more if she was a certified secretary. So she had divorced her husband and was raising 4 kids at the time. So she drove herself to and from Columbus to get certified. Got bored doing that, started reading the handbook again, and realized that if you have sex offenders, you have to have sex offender classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't offer those. So she said, I'll teach them. So she taught all 3 levels of sex offender classes.
Wow.
And then eventually got promoted to being a case manager. So that's when she moved from administration into the walls of the prison and worked right next to the inmates.
That sounds sketchy.
She loved it.
Really?
She loved it. My grandma's 82. She's still alive.
I was going to ask, is she still around?
Yeah, she's still around. Her whole house is furnished with inmate artwork. So
really?
So the inmates were her buddies. She loved them. They used to come in and gossip and like critique her because she was single at the time. So they'd say, "No, Judy, we like this perfume better than that one," and try to set her up with other guards.
Right.
And they used to look out for her. So if they knew that there was going to be a big riot or a fight or something like that, they would come to her cell and say, "Hey, Judy, I think it's time for your smoke break." And so she'd go out. They'd go into lockdown, and then she'd come back, and they'd go, "Hey, that was a really good time for you to take a break, wasn't it?"
Yeah.
And so they would make artwork and stuff, and she still has it in her house. So
wow.
it's kind of a trip at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I bet.
You're like, "Hey, I really like this picture. Where'd you get that?" "Oh, an inmate drew that for me." And I go, "Oh, what'd he do?" And she goes, "Oh, he was a murderer, but he was such a nice young man."
God, I bet that's such a cool step back in time, though, to see all the different art that was going that guys were doing around that time too.
Yeah, and the inmates, it's kind of a big misconception, and I'm sure it's not a misconception everywhere, but the good lot of the guards and the employees at the reformatory, at least, were really good people.
Really?
Of course, you're going to have a couple bad apples here and there, but as for like my grandmother and my grandfather, they really wanted the inmates to do well and to kind of get back on their feet. So my grandfather and my grandmother, they kind of became sort of like a mentor to those people, to the inmates. And my grandmother, she always went by this policy, and she always tells me that it'll work in the office place too. But she says that inmates are very self-sufficient and self-governing. So as long as you are honest, that you follow through with what you say you're going to do, and as long as you're fair, you're not going to have any problems.
It's true. I mean, it really is. I mean, that translates all across the board.
Yeah. And so she had an inmate one time that was sending her, basically he was stalking her and threatening her and her family. And so she mentioned something to one of her friends. His name was Peacock, which is like the most inmate nickname I've ever heard in my entire life. And she mentioned something to Peacock and said, "Hey, just watch this guy. I want to make sure that he's, not knowing which car is mine and stuff like that." And so she points him out, and that was a big mistake on her end, because the next day, Peacock told my grandmother that she didn't have to worry about this specific inmate anymore. And she's like, "Oh no, what did you do?" He's like, "I didn't do anything. He took a tumble down the stairs. He's in the infirmary, but he won't be bothering you anymore."
Oh my God, dude. Peacock's got grandma's back for real.
Get yourself a friend like Peacock.
Yeah, straight up. God. Dude, that is it is so cool to hear. It's so cool to hear about that. Just, hearing how she befriended people, and to be and for like really think about that for a second. Like that says a lot about your grandmother and her personality, because the guys cared about her. I mean, there were people that were there that genuinely cared about her to a point where, not only did she confide in somebody, in an inmate, and be like, hey, is there, can you just keep an eye out and make sure, like, there's such a mutual level of respect and trust there to and for Peacock to go out there and just that's not true. I don't know that for a fact. But for homie to fall down the stairs, that's crazy. Like that's so insane. Like that shows so much of your grandmother's character.
Yeah, she's a role model, man.
Wild.
And it's funny if you obviously none of you guys would know my grandmother, but she is maybe 4'11". Has never ever been above 100 pounds.
Really? Just a petite, basically just an American Girl doll.
Yeah, exactly. But imagine American Girl doll that smokes Virginia Slim, super slim menthols.
Still to this day?
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. 82.
Let's go. Did she have any? Did she ever have anything to do with the prison these days at all?
No, not much anymore. We just, talk about OSR till the sun comes up.
Really?
Yeah, she is very, very happy that I'm there. And when I got, promoted after you guys came.
Right. You got promoted after we left?
I did.
Shout out to you. Let's go. What do you do now? Give me the official job title.
Communications coordinator.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said at the beginning. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but no, you're good. So when you guys came, I was an intern.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was a tour guide, but I needed an internship for school, and I guess they kind of needed a digital production major. So that's me.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but my grandmother, the one thing that she's kind of adamant about is that we have an inmate cemetery on site. Mm-hmm. And the inmates that didn't have a next of kin or family members, when they passed away, they would get buried out in the cemetery. And my grandmother and my grandfather didn't want the funeral to be empty. Mm-hmm. So they would go out to all of the funerals to make sure at least somebody was there.
Wow.
Her big thing right now is that she wants to make sure that eventually when that cemetery is released from the state ownership and it becomes part of our property, that we go out there and actually put names on the tombstones.
So they're all unmarked?
They are marked, but with your inmate number.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. Which I can't imagine,
of
being...
course.
And especially because at that time, we were just for young first-time offenders.
Yeah.
So if it was like Ted Bundy or something, it's like, he doesn't even get a grade. But like for these guys that, just stole a horse,
right?
I don't think that's deemable to be just a number for the end of eternity.
I definitely agree with that. No doubt about it. That's so wild. I can't imagine being the guy who stole a horse, or was homeless, and then you get there, and then all of a sudden there's 100 max security guys there, and you're just dealing with it.
It'd be terrible.
It would be terrifying. God, I would be as much of a hermit crab as humanly possible. Like, just don't look at me. Like, I'd rather spend the day in the cell.
Yeah.
And one of the craziest things is seeing, talking about spending the day in the cell, is seeing the what was it? It's the 23-hour cells near the basement where you'd walk in there and there was like 2 rows. It like split off, and then there was 2 sections of cells, and there was just a whole, just like a little square box this big on it, and no natural lighting whatsoever. What that was called? What's that called?
Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. God, I was blanking so hard.
No, you're good.
That was one of the weirdest things to see and actually walk through there, and I stepped in the cell because I'm a big dude, and I wanted to see how I were to fit in a cell like that, and it was scary. I mean, it's terrifying. I can't imagine being in anything like that. And then, you know, right off of that, down in the basement, we went to, and you told us about the old, is torture the right word?
Yes.
The old torturing area. Tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about that, because that was wild to hear.
Yeah. So at the time, we were running 8x8 punishments.
Mm-hmm.
So you are chained to the wall, standing for 8 hours. And then you're chained to the floor, stooped for 8 hours. And then you get to lay down for 8 hours. And that went back and forth until your mind was right. Which I don't know who makes that decision. And like,
God.
yeah. And then we also had hot box punishments. So we threw a chair into a hot air exchanger, and you would sweat out your bad behavior.
So and this is all just bad behavior within the prison, correct?
Yes.
Like starting fights, you know, maybe shivving somebody, shanking somebody.
Yes.
God,
Yeah.
I can imagine that was pretty common back then.
It is. It's very common.
Really?
Especially between getting released from Chow Hall. So they could only feed so many inmates at a time. So they would do it in increments, and the lines would pass each other. And usually, if you time it right, you can get one in.
God,
but
that's
yeah,
so wild.
Yeah. In fact, we had a school group that came in, and we get a lot of school groups. And
when the prison was still open?
Oh, no.
Okay, I was like, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah. I had a 6th grader who found a shiv in a cell. Yeah.
Really?
I was ticked because I've been working there for 3 years, and I want to find something cool, and this kid walks in for like 3 minutes and finds a shiv.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you guys still have that?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, "What is this?" And so I had to explain what a shiv was, and then
6th grader.
Yeah,
Here's what a shiv is, kid.
6th grade boys will be 6th grade boys, and he was like, "Oh," and like trying to stab his friends, and I was like, "Oh my god,
please don't do that, Jesus!
Please give me the knife."
Yes, please, Jesus. Yeah, that whole torture area, is that in the basement? Correct? That was in the basement.
Yes.
That, by the way, is just a terrifying place. I saved some of that, and yeah, I was filming throughout that on my phone because it was terrifying, but so interesting to hear what was actually going on during that time. And then, so there was the 8x8s, the hot box, and then the hole.
Yes. So the hole was it was a more than 12-foot deep hole in the ground that you would scurry down a ladder, and that would be your solitary confinement, your punishment, for a week straight until you get pulled up to make sure you don't have any disease, and then you're put back down, and you do 30 days at a time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How are they feeding these guys? Just like tossing down food?
A bucket. Yeah.
Dude.
And the bucket's also your bathroom too.
Oh my God.
I think it was a different bucket though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, that's so brutal. I mean, that's brutal. Like even thinking about that, like now, oh my God, I can't imagine. How many guys do you think ended up going through all of that? Through was that an oftentimes thing?
I have no idea.
Really?
There aren't too many records of that, mostly because 8x8s, Hotbox, and the Hole got deemed cruel and unusual. It was a violation of the 8th Amendment. So
wild. Who'd have thought that?
Yeah, who'd have thunk?
Yeah.
So we took all of those records and we got rid of them because,
yeah, we don't need that. That's okay.
Yeah, just file it.
Yeah,
and file it away.
Just file it off. God, that's so crazy. I mean, it truly is. It's one of the most fascinating places I've ever gotten the opportunity to explore, and also one of the most terrifying places I've gotten to explore because of the sheer number of human deaths there is kind of insane. It's kind of insane. One thing that I was just thinking about too was why did the prison shut down in 1990? Just because it was time or what?
So in the late 1970s, there was a huge class action. It was the inmates versus the state of Ohio.
Okay.
And the inmates and the Council for Humane Treatment, they said that the reformatory was not fit for humans. And they were right. We had rats, we had cockroaches, we had no heat, no cooling. It was just falling apart. It was terrible. And so in 1983, they decided to rule in favor of the inmates. They said, yeah, you're right. You have to build a new facility. Well, the reformatory didn't have really any money at that point in time. And so they were kind of put in a weird position where they're like, okay, but we have to build a new prison, but we don't even have enough money to maintain this one.
Right.
So what do we do?
Yeah.
And so they just decided, all right, well, I guess that we'll just put all of our money to building the new prison. So from 1983 to New Year's Eve of 1990, when we moved our last guy out, all the money just went into the new prison. So conditions got worse.
Of course.
And we couldn't maintain, the plaster on the walls, and we couldn't, pay for bedding and stuff like that. We had inmates that would take rags and wrap them around their head while they slept so the cockroaches wouldn't crawl in their ears or in their nose.
What? That's terrifying. Oh my God. Can you I can't I know I'm constantly saying that. Can you imagine? But it's so wild to think about, because I can't even put myself in that situation. Imagine being that guy who showed up in 84 or in 83, like right as this happened, and he's like, all right, well, at least, I mean, I've heard it's kind of nice, I guess. And then you show up and it's just going down the tank. God, that's crazy. And the thing about that too is I can't imagine them, really jumping on building a new prison. That, I mean, like I'm sure it's a priority, but not one where everyone's like, oh yeah, let me go spend a bunch of money like as fast as I can. Let's try and make this quick, kind of thing.
Yeah. My grandma was put on the council for the new prison.
Really?
And she promptly left because nobody would listen to her. Because they had this budget to purchase some stuff for the new prison, and she said, well, don't put the money towards the plastic chairs, get the wood so it'll last.
Right.
And I guess that whoever was running finance at the time just didn't think that was right. And so she was like, if you're not going to listen.
All right, I'm out. See ya. Later. I don't need this. God.
Yeah. But it was, from 1983 to 1990, it was absolutely terrible. And in fact, a lot of the decay that you see in the prison right now happened from 83 to 90 while we were still open.
Really?
Yeah, because they were going to tear it down. So why put a new coat of paint on the walls if someone's going to tear it down?
Of course. God.
And then you add on the 5-6 years that we were completely vacant.
Mm-hmm.
And then the downspouts were put in the walls by our architects, so those bust. Then you have water damage and all sorts of stuff, and paintballing inside, and so we had a mess.
Yeah, I can imagine it was a nightmare trying to reopen.
Yeah.
God, so crazy to think about. How long have you been there now? How long have you been working there?
3 years.
3 years in total? And what's the plan? Are you planning on riding this thing out and hanging out for a long time, or what?
Yeah. So if it goes the way that I plan, then I will be retiring from OSR.
Holy, you're about to be a lifer.
I'm about to be a lifer. Yes.
Lifer. Yeah. That's so cool. I think think that's so rad because, obviously I like I said before, I'm a big history nerd, and I get into it. I love hearing about, stories and the way things were. I don't want anything to do with anything paranormal, so that can all just get out of here. But, to find something that you're truly passionate about, and especially somebody like you who has so much history family-wise in this reformatory, I think it's so rad that you'd want to continue on and continue making it and like keep going and keep being a part of this as a lifer, because that's
Well,
crazy. That's
thank you very much.
crazy.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know if you'd be interested in this story, but last year we have this event. It's called Parapsychon, and it's a paranormal and psychic convention. I won't count on you being there.
I won't ever be there.
But there's a really famous psychic, and his name is Chip Coffey.
Okay.
And he did psychic readings.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching, of course, being an OSR, you have to like watch the ghost hunting shows and like be a fan of that stuff. And so I was psyched for Chip Coffey to show up. And I
love Chip. That's my guy.
I was like, that's my dude right there.
That's my guy, Chip.
So I was like, I bought tickets. Even though I work there, I bought tickets. I got my mom and my aunt, and we all went, and we went to the psychic reading, and I didn't expect anything to happen. And lo and behold, I get read.
What?
And we're on the first floor of the West Cell block, and he reads me, and like everything, like literally, he's reading me in front of all these people. He's like calling me out.
Was there a bunch of people there?
Oh yeah, everybody was there.
Really?
And he's like, saying stuff about me that, I know I need to work on. And and then all of a sudden he like looks at me and he says, my grandfather is gone. Mm-hmm. And he goes, your grandfather wants you to know that where you are supposed to be is right here. Holy. And we were on the bottom floor of the West Cell block. And at the time I was like, okay, well, maybe he means like, right here, right now. Right. That's where I'm supposed to be, like in the present or whatever. And then I get a full-time administrative position.
Dude, welcome aboard. Right? God, welcome aboard. That's so cool. It is. You showed me a couple pictures, I believe, of one of your grandfathers. I don't know which one, but you showed me the whole guard. Like the whole guard had their own picture, and you're like, yeah, that's my grandpa right there. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy to see how far back your family goes there. It's wild. God.
Yeah. God. In my first year of working there, it was my last tour of the entire season. And my grandfather, who was captain of the guard, he passed away when I was 2. And I still remember him, very vividly. It's so weird how you remember stuff from that far back.
Right.
But it was my last tour of the season, and I was talking about him with my tour group, and I looked outside the window, and there was a blue butterfly that landed on the side of the building. And I put a blue butterfly in the flower arrangement at his funeral.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You made me tear up too. This is crazy.
So it's really wonderful.
You're meant to be. Like you're meant to be there.
Yeah, it feels good, and you feel. I don't know if you guys, if everybody believes in that, people watching over you and stuff like that. But I feel safe there. I feel him there, and we didn't get a lot of time together, but we do now.
Yeah.
So.
God, that's wild. Well, listen, Alayna, I am so appreciative of having you on the show. It was so great to talk with you and hear all these crazy stories, because it's truly such a fascinating place to visit, place to see. And I even, whenever I came back, I was like, listen, I'm gonna go back there just to tour with you, and just I want to just walk around and just be like, what is this like a little kid. Just tell me everything, because it not only is it so fascinating, but it's so beautiful to see. And to see the outside, the inside, to see how things work, because it is literally like it's stopped in time. Like this is what it was like. It's truly amazing, and I still plan on going back at some point in time, just never at night. I will never be a part of anything paranormal ever again. That was the last call for me. But where can the people find out about the Ohio State Reformatory? Where can we find out about you? Tell me everything.
All right, so the best way to either get in contact with us or see what's going on with us is our Instagram.
Okay.
So we are Ohio State Reformatory on Instagram. If you follow us, give us a like, a follow, whatever. I'm the one that runs the social media accounts. So we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on Facebook, but Instagram Instagram is definitely the place that you want to go.
The biggest one for sure.
Yeah, the biggest one. And if you message it, hey, it comes to me. So
Yeah,
I will respond to you.
You're gonna be talking to this lady right here.
Also, we are online at mrps.org.
Okay.
So you can purchase your tickets online if you would like. You can also purchase your tickets at the door. We are currently running straight into haunt season. So we run a haunted house from the end of September all the way to November. And so that you can access those tickets at bloodprison.com if you're interested.
What a beautiful name.
We have ghost hunts, we have ghost walks, which are like nighttime tours. We run daytime tours, private tours. Just give us a call, give us an email, whatever, and we can get you hooked up.
Rad. I'm very appreciative of having you on. All that information is going to be posted in the description of whether you're listening to this or watching it, whatever it may be. It'll all be down there. Give it a check out. It's crazy. It's so worth it. Like I said, I don't get into anything paranormal, but even with the paranormal and things that are attached to that, I without question will end up back there again just to see it, because it's crazy. It's such a sight to see. But again, thank you so much for coming on. It does mean a lot, and you and I will chat very soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.